So what's up guys, today like aim 400 likes, so please subscribe. What if Naruto is secretly a like girl in Rias Harem movie? Now what most people don't know is the Kuo Academy and the town it resides in as a whole isn't under the jurisdiction of humans but of devils. To be more precise, it is under the joint jurisdiction of the houses of Gremory and Citri. Two of the original 72 pillars of the underworld. Currently the town is under the control of the two heiresses of the two houses, Rias Gremory and Sona Citri, who are currently in their third year of high school. In order to complete their devil duties successfully, such as granting human wishes for a price or hunting stray devils, the two heiresses have been using clubs as a cover-up. Sona Citri is the student body president with her peerage comprising the student council and is in charge of Kuo during the day, while Rias Gremory is the president of the Occult Research Club, ORC, which is located at the old school building, with its members being part of her peerage, and is in charge of Kuo at night. Currently 3 students were approaching the old school building, as school had ended for the day. The first was a boy with blonde hair, gray eyes and a mole under his left eye. He was wearing the Kuo Academy boys' school uniform, which consisted of a black blazer with white accents over a white, long-sleeved dress shirt, with a black ribbon on the collar, matching black pants, and brown dress shoes. He is Kiba Yuto, a second-year student and also Rias Gremory's knight. Next to Kiba to his right was another boy. This one had short brown hair and light brown eyes. He was also wearing the Academy's school uniform, but it differs in the fact that he wears a red t-shirt underneath his open dress shirt and blazer, and wears blue and white sneakers in place of dress shoes. He is Issei Hyodo, also a second-year student and the only pawn of Rias Gremory, since his resurrection cost her all 8 of her pawn pieces. Right behind Issei was a girl with long blonde hair and green eyes. Her hair flowed all the way down to her back, with split bangs over her forehead and a single strand sticking out from the top, sloping backwards. She was wearing the Kuo Academy girls' school uniform, which consisted of a white long-sleeved, button-down shirt with vertical linings, a black ribbon on the collar. Instead of a black shoulder cape and matching button-down corset, she had a black sweater vest over her dress shirt, and a magenta skirt with white accents. This is Asia Argento. She is a second-year student and Rias Gremory's bishop. Buckus problem? Maybe it has something to do with the House of Gremory, Kiba told Issei while they were walking towards the clubroom located in the old school building. Issei met with Kiba while he was on his way to the clubroom along with Asia, so he asked Kiba about Rias' strange behavior, but it seems like Kiba also didn't know why she was acting that way. Akeno-san would know, right? Kiba nods at Issei's question. Akeno-san is Buckus' most trusted servant, so she obviously would know. He knew that asking Rias about her problem was rude, but he was becoming concerned about her since he got involved in it last night. But he didn't feel like talking about last night with anyone. It would cause an uproar if he did. He steeled his resolve and conviction to her any way he could. When they arrived to front of the door, Kiba noticed something. It took me this long to notice her presence. I am ashamed, Kiba said as he put on a serious face by narrowing his eyes. Issei shrugged his shoulders and opened the door without any concerns. Hello, said Issei without a care in the world as he and the other two entered the room only to freeze in place. Inside the room were 4 people, 3 female students of the academy, one sitting in an armchair behind the main desk, one standing on the left of the desk and one sitting on a chair in the corner of the room. The final person was a woman dressed like a maid and was standing right in front of the desk with her back facing the door. The girl sitting in the armchair behind the main desk had beautiful white skin, blue-green eyes and a buxom figure. Her most distinctive feature was her long beautiful crimson hair that reached down to her thighs, with a single hair strand sticking out from the top. Her hair also had loose bangs covering her forehead and side bangs framing her face. She was wearing the Kuo Academy uniform for girls, black shoulder cape button-down corset and everything, with brown dress shoes over white crew-length socks. She was Rias Gremory, third-year student in the academy, heir to the Gremory house and more importantly the king of the peerage in the room. The girl standing next to the desk had a buxom figure much like Rias, with her breasts being a little bigger. With very long black hair and violet eyes, her hair was tied in a long ponytail, reaching all the way down to her legs with 2 strands sticking out from the top and sloping backwards, with an orange ribbon keeping it in place. She, like Rias, was wearing the girls' school uniform with black knee-high socks. She was Akeno Himejima, a third-year student at Kuo Academy, but also the queen of Rias' peerage. The girl that was sitting in the corner was a rather petite girl, with white hair and hazel eyes. Her front hair had 2 long bangs going past her shoulders and several loose bangs hanging over her forehead, while the back had a short bob cut. She was also wearing a black cat-shaped hair clip on both sides of her hair. She was wearing the Academy's girls' school uniform, without the shoulder cape. Her name was Kaneko Taju. She is a first-year student of Kuo Academy and Rias Gremory's rook. The last person in the room, standing in front of Rias' desk, was a beautiful woman appearing to be in her early 20s. With silver hair and matching eyes, her hair, which flowed all the way down to her back, featured a long braid on each side with small blue bows at the ends, while the rest was let down, ending in twin braids. She was wearing a blue and white French maid outfit with long sleeves and a white maid headband over her head, with red lipstick as a cosmetic accessory. She was Graphia Lucifuge, the wife and queen of Searsex Lucifer and Rias' sister-in-law. Rias had a very unpleasant face. Akano was smiling like usual, but there was a cold vibe surrounding her. Kaneko was sitting on the chair quietly. It seemed like she didn't want to get involved with what was going on as much as possible. The room had a heavy atmosphere and no one was talking. "Oh my," Kiba quietly said from behind Issei. The three of them went inside the room, but none of the members greeted them like they normally do. That's how tense the atmosphere of the room was. Asia was also feeling uneasy, so she held onto Issei's sleeve with an uneasy face. Issei patted her on head to comfort her and to make her feel safe. Rias decided to speak after looking at each of them. "Looks like everyone is here," she sighed and continued. "Before we start the club, there's something I need to tell all of you." "Oju-sama, do you want me to explain the situation?" said Graphia while looking at Rias. Rias rejected Graphia's offer by waving her hand. The truth is, just as Rias was about to speak, the magic circle on the floor started glowing. Teleportation? But all of the people from Gremory Group are here. Is it a devil that serves the house of Gremory like Graphia-san coming? Thought Issei as everyone's attention was on the magic circle. Unfortunately, Issei's guess is way off, but this experience will help him realize how much knowledge about devils he lacks. The symbol of the Gremory that was drawn on the center of the magic circle changed into an unfamiliar pattern for the two new members of the club. "What is this? Isn't this the Gremory's magic circle?" thought Issei with a bit of panic as he looked at it. "Phoenix," said Kiba in a low voice, but was heard by Issei, who was standing close to him. "Phoenix. Then it isn't a Gremory," he thought, and wondered how someone not from the Gremory house could use the magic circle. Light shined through the room. Then suddenly flames came out from the magic circle, and the room was flowed with heat. The silhouette of a man appeared inside the flames. He swung his arm across to the side and the flames disappeared. "Phew, it's been a while since I came to the humans' world," the person that came from the magic circle said. He was a tall and handsome young man in his early 20s, with short blonde hair and dark blue eyes. His outfit consisted of a burgundy blazer with gold embroidery on the right with matching pants and black dress shoes. Underneath his open blazer was a white dress shirt that was not fully buttoned, giving a slight view to his chest. To Issei, he looked like those bad boy types that some girls went for. The man looked around the room, and then smirked after spotting Rias. "My lovely Rias, I came to see you," the man said with arrogance clear in his voice. My lovely Rias? This guy, what kind of relation does he have with Bucko?" thought Issei with shock after hearing what the blonde man said. Rias looked at him with her eyes half closed. It didn't seem like she was welcoming him, but he didn't seem to care and approached her. "Now then, Rias, let's go and take a look at the ceremony hall. The date of the ceremony is decided, so we need to check it before then," he said as he grabbed Rias' arm. "Let go of me, Razor," Rias said with a deep and serious voice while shaking his hand off her. By the tone of her voice and her expression, Issei concluded that she was really pissed off. The guy, now identified as Razor, didn't seem to care about having his hand shook off and just smirked. His cocky attitude started to tick Issei off to the point where he stepped forward and faced him. "Hey you were being rude to Bucko. Actually, what's with that rude attitude towards a girl?" he said with a clear voice. Razor looked at him, and then started looking at Issei as if he was looking at some trash, pissing the boy off even more. Who are you?" he asked with a displeased tone in his voice. It was totally different from the sweet voice he had towards Rias. "Nggh, he's clearly looking down on me. I can feel his hatred towards me, but I will say what I have to," Issei thought while getting more and more frustrated. "I am the servant devil of Rias Gremory-sama. I am the pawn. Hyodo Issei," he said to him with pride in his voice. Okay, said Riser without really caring. Slip. Issei slipped after Riser's dull reaction. He felt kind of hurt for some reason by that uncaring reaction, like he wasn't even worth his notice. "I mean, who the heck are you?" Issei asked, frustrated by the way Riser dismissed him. The guy seemed a bit surprised by Issei's question. "Oh? Rias, you haven't mentioned me to your servants. I mean, do these guys don't know who I am? Even if they are reincarnated devils, they should know." "I didn't tell them because there was no need," said Rias harshly. "Oh my. Harsh like always, aren't you, my dear? Ha ha ha, he said and starts laughing. Then Graphia stepped forward and looked at Issei. Hyodo Issei-sama, she said with an emotionless voice, surprising Issei. Why yes? He asks with a stutter. This person is Razor Phoenix-sama, he's a pure-blood high-class devil, and the third son of the House of Phoenix. Graphia explains to him about Riser. Yeah, so he's a high-class devil from the House of Phoenix, so he holds a peerage then. Isn't Phoenix a legendary creature that appears in books and is said to be a firebird or immortal bird? So there are things similar to it among the devils, thought Issei as he looked from Graphia back to Riser. So how does a guy like that related to Bucko? A friend? Or is he some childhood friend? He continued musing, trying to piece everything together. As if guessing what Issei was thinking, Riser looked back at him with a cocky smile on his face and decided to reveal his true relation with Rias. And I am also the future husband of the next heiress of the House of Gremory. Riser finished Graphia's introduction of him with his cocky smile getting even bigger with anticipation of their reaction. Husband, the next heiress, he isn't talking about Bucko, right? Thought Issei as his face started losing color. I am engaged to Rias Gremory, he finished with a triumphant tone on his voice as he stared at Issei with his cocky smile. Issei screamed because of the shocking revelation. This cocky bastard is his Bucko's fiancé. This left Issei quite speechless, and Riser reveled in Issei's shock and denial. At that moment the sound of someone clearing her throat was heard, and everyone in the room looked at Graphia, who had her eyes closed and her left fist in front of her mouth. When she opened her eyes and saw that they were all giving her their attention, she spoke. Actually, Riser-sama, your engagement with Rias Ajo-sama may not be valid anymore due to certain circumstances, which is why this meeting was called, she said, and froze everyone in the room. Disbelief appeared on Riser's face while hope appeared on Rias. What are you talking about, Graphia? Asked Rias, in the hope that whatever circumstances they may be, it will help her end her engagement with Riser. A few days ago another, older marriage contract came into effect, she answered, shocking everyone in the room. Riser looked at her with a face that showed that he thought that this was some kind of joke. Rias was perplexed as she wasn't sure if this was a good thing since she didn't know the other who might marry her. For all she knew, he was worse than Riser. What were the circumstances that occurred? She asked calmly with the hope that she might escape both contracts. You can't be serious, Rias. You are marring me. We are ending this discussion right now. I do not know what that other contract might say, but no other family is greater than the Phoenix, said Riser with anger evident in his voice. Quiet, Riser. I told you I will never marry you, no matter how much you act as a spoiled child. Please answer, Graphia, said Rias, and Riser was started seething in anger. He went to argue, but Graphia released a small amount of her killing intent, making him recoil and sit on the couch next to him. A few days ago, the heir of a thought-to-be-lost house appeared in the underworld. The father of said heir had made a marriage contract with the Gremory house years before the contract with the Phoenix house, and his appearance made the contract come into effect, she said, and everyone in the room focused all their attention on her. What is his name? From which house is he from? And why was I not informed about this contract sooner? Asked Rias, a little upset that this was kept from her. His name is Naruto Uzumaki, Uzumaki being his mother's maiden name. The reason I do not reveal his last name and his house is due to a request from Naruto-sama himself. Since he wants to reveal his heritage to the underworld at an appropriate time of his choosing. As for the reason you were never informed, it was because at the bay of his birth more than 18 years ago a certain incident occurred claiming both of his parents' lives. We assumed he also died, thus making the contract invalid, she finished, and Rias nodded, accepting the answers Graphia gave her. That sorry excuse of a devil probably died like the weakling that he most likely was, Riser began saying with his cocky attitude coming back. I bet he was so weak and pathetic that Riser would have continued, but a massive amount of killing intent slammed on him, making him freeze in place. The others around the room also felt it, though not as strongly as Riser, making them sweat, and they all looked at Graphia as she was releasing it. Her usual stoic and emotionless face now had a look of anger and disapproval on it. Rias was shocked at what she was seeing. Graphia almost never showed any sort of emotion when she was on duty. For her to release this strong of a killing intent meant that Riser had insulted someone she respected greatly. I would advise you not to insult someone like Minato-sama, Riser-sama, she said with a low and cold voice that sent shivers down their spine, her silver eyes looking straight into Riser's blue ones, and he felt like she was looking at his very soul. Especially him, as you owe your very existence to him, she finished, surprising everyone there with what she said. What do you mean by that? Asked Rias as Graphia calmed down, returning to her ever-stoic self. During the Civil War, the lords and ladies of the houses that were against the old Mao faction which included the lords and ladies of the Gremory and Fennex, had a secret meeting involving persuading some of the other houses to join against them. The old Mao faction somehow discovered it and sent an army of 1,000 high-class devils to eliminate them. They would have succeeded had it not been for Minato-sama informing the lords and intercepting the army, completely obliterating it. She answered Rias' question, shocking every individual in the room. Wow. That guy was really strong, thought Issei with awe and a bit of fear. Incredible, thought Kiba, astounded by the tale. So you see, Riser-sama, if Minato-sama wasn't there, your parents would have died and you would never have existed. She finished, looking directly at Riser's eyes with her own cold silver ones. Riser said nothing and just gulped. Wait a minute, said Rias, standing from her chair as she suddenly realized something. Are you talking about the Black Hood? She asked the maid while looking at her with a shocked expression. Everyone in the room was shocked, except for Issei and Asia, who had confused look on their faces, as Grafia nodded affirmatively. Who? Issei asked Kiba, how was closest to him. Kiba looked at Issei and answered while Asia paid attention to him. The Black Hood is one of the greatest figures in underworld history, named as such due to him always wearing a hood and a black mask. He was one of the greatest heroes of the Civil War, earning for the new Mao faction a number of victories. It is also stated that he was the greatest spy the new Mao faction had, supplying them with valuable information that won us many victories, though no one knows his real identity, apart from the higher-ups. Still, he is a celebrated hero in the underworld. Heck, there is even a very popular cartoon based on him. Though the main character's face is always covered in darkness, he answered, getting an odd look from Issei and Asia, who did not know about it. Grafia nodded at Kiba's explanation. That is correct. He was also a close friend of the current 4 Mao, she said, and narrowed her eyes at Riser, who gulped again. Even if he was a high-class devil hailing from the noble family of Fennex, he wasn't powerful enough to take on the strongest queen. I apologize for my previous words, he said, though it was clear that he did not mean them. Wanting to move the conversation along, Rias looked at Grafia. So he, the Black Hood, made a marriage contract with my family? She asked, and the maid nodded. Yes. Minato-sama made a marriage contract for his firstborn child with the House of Gremory over 38 years ago. The first agreement which made the contract go into effect is that the age difference of the heir and the child of Gremory of the opposite gender, to be at most 10 years, and since he is 18 that agreement has passed, thus he activation of the contract, she explained to Rias. That doesn't matter. The contract of the Fennex and Gremory is still in effect. As a result, Rias belongs rightfully to me. I do not care who he is or what his father has done, said Riser with a demanding voice as he stood up from the couch. Rias looked at him with a deep frown, hating that he had referred to her as if she were an object. That is why we have gathered here. Once Naruto-sama arrives, I will explain the agreements of the contract and what will be done about the situation, said Grafia, and Riser sat back down. When will he arrive then? Asked Rias, and just as Grafia was about to answer, there was a knock on the door. Rias narrowed her eyes at the door, as she hadn't felt anyone enter the barrier which surrounds the old school building, nor could she sense anyone behind the door. Come in, she said, and the door opened. Entering the room was a young man that made all the girls in the room, except for Grafia, blush. He was 6 feet tall. He had spiky dark silver hair and ice blue eyes that captivated them. The most notable, and cute in the girls' opinion, characteristic were the 3 whisker-like markings he had on each of his cheeks. He was wearing a dark silver V-neck shirt with a high-collared black leather jacket over it. For pants he was wearing black burgundy jeans, and black shinobi sandals. Finally he had a black bandana tied to his left bicep with a metal plate with a strange leaf-like symbol engraved on it. His face and body was devoid of fat and his well-toned muscles could be seen through his shirt. Now he didn't have the body of a bodybuilder, but rather that of an extreme swimmer. The young man looked around the room, and when he spotted Grafia, closed the door behind him, walked closer to the center of the room, and with a smile filled with warmth spoke. Greetings. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. The room was silent. The only thing that could be heard was liquid pouring into cups. Rias had her fingers crossed in front of her mouth as she sat behind the desk. Kiba, Issei, Asia and Kaneko on her left, Grafia and Akeno, who was preparing the tea, on her right. On the 2 couches in the center of the room 2 people were sitting. On the couch to her left, sitting like he owned the place, with outstretched arms and his right leg over his left, glaring at the man in front of him, was Riser Fennex. He was an individual she loathed and wanted nothing to do with, or be associated with, due to his cocky attitude, his disrespect for anyone below him in social standing, and his sexist beliefs. On the couch to her right, sitting comfortably, with his right leg over his left and his hands resting on his leg while his fingers were crossed, with a calm demeanor, was Naruto Uzumaki. To Rias this man was a mystery. She didn't even know from which house he hailed from, but there was something about him, she wasn't sure what exactly, that made her want to get close to him, to learn more about him, to understand him. and he being handsome didn't hurt at all. "Thank you," said Naruto to Akeno as she handed him a cup of tea. The maid by Rias Queen is superb," said Riser with a cocky smile, trying to act superior. As he tested the tea, you could hear the demeaning tone he used when he called her a queen, like she was an object. This made Rias angry, but that anger left her and was replaced with curiosity when she saw Naruto narrow his eyes for a second when he heard the tone Riser used, like he was displeased with the disrespect he showed Akeno. "Thank you very much," said Akeno with a smile on her face, but that smile did not reach her eyes. Anyone who could read people could tell she was not happy getting praised by this man. Naruto closed his eyes and put his cup close to his face in order to smell the aroma coming from the tea. After a few seconds enjoying the aroma the tea released, he gracefully took a sip from the cup and savored the tea's taste. "Excuse me, miss. Would you be so kind as to give me your name?" he asked Akeno with a kind smile casing a blush to appear of the raven-haired girl. Akeno. Akeno Hamejima," answered Akeno with a small stutter surprising every member of the O.R.C. Since when did Akeno stutter? Issei was seething silently about pretty boys getting all the girls and how life was unfair. "Well, Akeno-san, I must admit that this is the most delicious tea I have ever tasted," he praised her with a sincere voice and a charming smile making her blush darken a bit. "Thank you very much," she said, Akeno giving Naruto one of her true smiles, since for some reason getting praised so sincerely made her feel warm inside. Naruto nodded and went back to drinking his tea as Akeno gave Rias her cup and went to stand with the other peerage members, her cheeks still a bit red. Riser glared at Naruto for outshining him with the reaction of Rias' servant. Naruto just ignored him, making Riser clench his teeth in frustration. Rias was amazed at how easy it was for Naruto to get under the skin of that cocky bastard. "Now that we are all here, I would like to inform you of the details of the situation," said Graphia as she stepped forward. Now, originally the contract with Naruto-sama's father took priority, due to it being older than the contract with the Phoenix House. However, because of the event that caused Minato-sama's death along with his wife, we believed that Naruto-sama had died as well, which pushed the contract with the Phoenix forward. As a result, the situation has come at a stalemate, Graphia explained as everyone in the room had their complete attention to her. Because of this, the Gremory has come to two solutions for the problem. Either Riser-sama or Naruto-sama back down from the contract, or the two will have a rating game with the loser's contract becoming null and void, she finished, and everyone in the room raised their eyebrows in surprise, with the exception of Naruto, who raised a single eyebrow intrigued, before closing both his eyes and raising his right hand to his chin. After a moment a cocky smirk appeared on Riser's face. "Well, I think the answer is obvious," he said and looked at Naruto with a look that said, "I am superior to you. So as you heard, you better back off, brat, so this facade will be over and I can marry my lovely Gremory," Riser said, and everyone in the room looked at Naruto, who had his eyes still closed. "Hey, are you even listening to me?" yelled Riser, getting irritated by Naruto's attitude towards him, and Naruto opened his eyes. Did you say something?" he asked, and everyone in the room looked at him dumbfounded, until Issei started laughing, followed by the rest of Rias' peerage, her included, and although Graphia did not laugh, her lips twitched upwards and her eyes showed her amusement. Riser did not find it funny at all and stood up, rage evident in his face as he started to release his demonic power accompanied by his killing intent. Then flames appeared around Riser, increasing the temperature of the room as a result. As the occupants of the room felt Riser's power, they each had different reactions. Asia fell to her knees due to the pressure. Issei started trembling as he gulped, now realizing how powerful that guy is. Kiba, Kaneko and Akeno felt like they had weight on their shoulders. Even Rias started sweating a bit while having a frown on her face. As they all looked at Naruto, they were surprised to find him staring at Riser straight into his eyes, not affected by the display of power at all. The way Naruto was staring into Riser's eyes unnerved him. There was no hesitation, no fear, no surprise at the amount of power he had. It was as if he was staring at his very soul. Riser did not like this at all. The look that Naruto was giving him was that you give when looking at someone weaker than yourself, someone who is inferior in terms of power, someone who is beneath you. Even if Naruto was looking up, realizing just what that look meant infuriated Riser even more, and he was ready to unleash more of his power, until Graphia intervened. "Riser-sama, please calm down. If you continue, then I won't be quiet about it. For Searzex-sama's honor, I won't hold back." Riser made a serious face after hearing Graphia's quiet and intense voice, showing that he is in fact scared of her. He calmed the flames around his body and sighed while he shook his head. "To be told that by the strongest queen, even I would be scared. I definitely wouldn't want to fight the people from Searzex-sama's group, which is known to be made up of monsters," he said as he sat back down with a frown on his face. "Now due to protocol I have to ask Riser-sama, Naruto-sama, Do either of you wish to back down? Grafia asked as she looked at the two of them. Of course not. There is no way that I will pass the chance to marry and possess the Gremory heiress, said Riser, with his eyes closed and his hands slightly above his head making a U-form, as if it was the best compliment a girl would ever want to hear. Rias glared at him, and frowns appeared on the faces of her peerage, for talking about her as if she were an object. Naruto's eyes narrowed to dangerous levels. For those who knew him, that was an alarm, as he looked at Riser with a disgusted look on his face, though Riser did not see it as he has his eyes closed. Naruto-sama? Grafia asked as she looked at the silver-haired young man. Naruto closed his eyes for a few seconds, before looking at the silver-haired maid. Before I answer that, I would like to ask a few questions if it's alright, he said, and Grafia nodded. Getting a positive response, Naruto looked at Riser. My first question is for you, Riser, he started as he looked at Riser straight into his eyes with the same intensity as before. Riser, for some reason, felt cold sweat running on the back of his neck, but nodded. Do you love Rias? His question surprised the occupants of the room. Rias was especially shocked. Didn't political marriages center on the desire for more political pull? Marriage contracts almost never put weight on the feelings of the ones mentioned in the contract, so why would he ask such a question? Riser snorted at the question. Of course I love her, she is beautiful and the heiress of the Gremory, he answered as his cocky face became even cockier, if that was even possible. What about you, don't you love her? Riser smirked, thinking he can turn Rias against Naruto, since in his opinion saying that you don't love a girl was the best way to turn her against you. I do not know enough about her to answer that question, he answered, confusing Riser as well as the rest of the people in the room. She is beautiful and an heiress to a powerful house. What else is there to know? Asked Riser with another cocky smile, thinking that he gave another great compliment. Everyone on Rias' peerage glared at Riser, with the exception of Asia, who was declined to glare. She frowned, with Rias clenching her teeth in anger. Even Grafia had a displeased look on her face, though it was barely visible. What else is there to know? How about her favorite color or what she likes to eat most? What are her hopes and dreams? What are her fears? Is she strong, courageous, outgoing, fun, loving, understanding, or is she mean, cruel, sadistic, heartless, uncaring, cowardly? Without knowing all that, how can you say you love her? Just how shallow is the definition of love for you? Let me clarify something. I do not care who Rias the heiress is. What I do care is who Rias the person is, Naruto answered while looking at Riser with his cold soul-seeing stare. Rias was beyond shocked. She always wanted someone to see her as herself and not just as the heiress of the Gremory. Don't get her wrong, she was proud to be the heiress of her house, but she also wanted someone to see her as more than that, to see the true Rias, the one that was hiding behind the mask of the heiress. The members of her peerage were also surprised by his statement, Issei especially, since he thought that Naruto was a cocky bastard like Riser. Grafia had a small smile on her face, and if you looked close enough you would see pride displaying in her eyes, pride of the fact that Naruto had the mindset of his father, a mindset that went against what his house originally believed. You dare call me shallow? Me? The third son of the House of Phoenix? I will not stand for this, especially not from an heir of some worthless house. I have had enough of this farce. I am ending you now, said Riser, enraged as he stood up and raised his right hand over his head in order to create a fireball and blast the one who dared stand up to him. Rias and her peerage looked at Riser with concern for what he intended to do, while Naruto was just looking at Riser with a calm expression on his face. Just as he was about to start gathering power, a hand grabbed his wrist. Riser turned his head in order to yell to whoever dared to stand in his way, only to freeze when his eyes met a pair of silver eyes with a cold intensity that could freeze hell. This is my last warning, Riser-sama. One more act of aggression and I will take action, said Grafia as she kept holding Riser's wrist. The tone of her voice was icy cold, and with the combination of her killing intent in the mix, had effectively shut the cocky Phoenix up, and he sat back down with a little less color on his face. She let go of his hand and looked back at Naruto. Is there anything else you would like to inquire, Naruto-sama? She asked, and Naruto nodded affirmatively. He turned his attention towards Rias. His eyes still had the intensity from before, but they now also hold warmth and kindness. Rias found herself drawn to those amassing icy blue eyes that looked at her with intensity, unable to look away. Rias-san, my next question is to you, and I would like it if you were honest, he said, and she nodded. Do you want to marry Riser? No, her answer came so quickly out of her mouth that it actually surprised him. He suspected that she didn't want to marry him. No woman with any self-esteem would willingly marry a jackass like Riser, but the way she said it showed that she has been trying to get rid of the contract with Riser for years. Riser frowned at Rias' answer. Who did she think she was? As a woman she should just bow her head and obey. As usual, Riser is being a prick. Naruto nodded at Rias' answer and looked back at Grafia. I have one final question before I tell you my decision, he told her, and she nodded for him to go on. I would like you to tell me the details of the contract my father made with the Grimoire, he told her, and she nodded, and turned her right palm upwards. Over her palm a small magic circle appeared, and a couple of seconds later a small scroll teleported into her hand. Before I begin, I would like to inform you that since the name of Naruto-sama's house is hidden, I will not be saying the name as I read, she said, and with a nod from everyone, except Riser, as she opened the scroll. First and foremost, this contract and its agreements surround the two individuals that are to be married and much less the houses themselves, said Grafia, and started to read the contract. The agreements are as followed. First, once the two children of the two houses meet for the first time, the contract comes in effect. Then a probation period will be in effect before the marriage can happen. The amount of time the probation period lasts will be determined accordingly. If they are below 17 years old, then the probation will last until both reach their 20th birthday. If they are above 17, on the other hand, the probation will last 3 years. Second, the contract cannot be annulled by anyone during the probation period, not even a Mao. Third, the marriage will not be forced during the probation period by anyone. The only way for the marriage to happen before the probation period is over is if both of them agree to it and they are older than 17 years old. Fourth, if by the end of the probation period one of them doesn't want to marry the other, then the contract will be annulled. Fifth, if by the end of or during the probation period both of them want to get married, the marriage cannot be annulled by anyone, not even by the authority of the Mao or the High Council. Sixth, due to the heir of Minato-sama's house being the last of his house, the Grimoire who enters this marriage will have to give up any rights to the Grimoire succession, as he or she will be the lord or lady of the house they will marry into. Seventh, if the heir of Minato-sama's house is male, the daughter of the Grimoire will have to agree on him having a harem of at least 2 women, due to the laws of the underworld. Those are the agreements of the marriage contract, and it is signed by Minato-sama, Sears ex Lucifer-sama, and Lord Grimoire, finished Grafia as she rolled the scroll and looked at the occupants of the room. Rias was stunned. She could annul the marriage the second the probation period was over if she did not want to marry Naruto. And no one could force her to marry him. That alone made this contract much more appealing than the one she had with Riser. Plus, if she did want to marry him, no one could force the annulment of the contract in order to force her into another one. And although she was proud to be the heiress of the Grimoire, she did not mind giving the title to her nephew. After all, the title of Lady of a House was higher in standing to the title of heiress, especially if the house itself was of high standing itself, and she suspected, due to all the secrecy, that it was. The only true difference will be that her words and actions will reflect more upon Naruto and his house than the Grimoire. Lastly, for a devil to have a harem wasn't all that uncommon. Heck, her own father had one with her mother managing it, so she didn't have a problem with that. Her peerage was surprised by the contents of the contract, as they realized that it was very beneficial for Rias, with the exception of Issei, who was crying, muttering lucky to have a harem by law while staring at silver-haired young man. Guess Jiraiya was right. My father was a romantic, since he gave both me and Rias a way out of the contract. Not to mention that by the time we annulled the contract we would both be at least 20, which would officially make me the lord of my house, and Rias would be old enough that no one could force us into another contract without our consent, said Naruto with a small smile while having his eyes closed. Everyone in the room, with the exception of Grafia, widened their eyes in shock at what he said, and Rias knew now that she really preferred the contract with Naruto than that with Riser. Riser was seething at the look Rias was giving the silver-haired bastard, a look that all but said that she preferred the contract with him, Naruto, instead of a phoenix like him, Riser. So Naruto-sama, will you be backing down on the contract? Asked Grafia, and looked at him as he opened his eyes to look right into her eyes. No, I will not. The only reason I considered it was because I did not know if I could annul the marriage on the chance me and Rias don't mix well as a couple, he answered, and Grafia nodded. In that case, a rating game will take place in order to decide which marriage contract will continue and which will be annulled, she said, and a cocky smirk appeared on Riser's face yet again. Seriously, is the cocky face his default or something? Wondered Naruto as he looked at Riser, who was about to open his mouth to blabber again. Well, this will be an easy victory, said Riser, and clicked his fingers, causing the magic circle on the floor to glow. The magic circle had the same emblem of phoenix that Riser appeared from. Then shadows appeared from the magic circle, 15 shadows to be exact. Issei was staring, speechless, at the 15 girls that had appeared as Riser showed that he had a full 15-member peerage. Well, these are my cute servants, he said with the ever-present cocky smile. We have already competed in official rating games, so there is no way that an upstart like you could beat us. He directed his attention to Naruto as he said that annoying smile never leaving his face. Naruto looked at Riser's peerage with a calculative eye that in all honesty unnerved the peerage of the Phoenix. I see, said Naruto as he closed his eyes. Riser perked up hearing his words, his smile growing. Oh, do you now see that it is futile to go against me now? He said with a victorious look on his face, thinking he had already won. No, what I see is that you prefer quantity and outer appearance instead of quality and actual ability. His words enraged Riser and hit his peerage's pride. I mean, look at them. With the exception of your queen and a couple of your main pieces, they seem completely untrained. I bet that those twins will be helpless without their chainsaws, he said as he looked at the lowly twins. Ha! You may preach that my peerage is not trained enough, but I at least have mine. Where is yours? Oh wait, I doubt that you even have a single piece, let alone an entire peerage, right? Said Riser and waited for Naruto to confirm his statement. No, I have a foul peerage as well, he said, shocking Riser. Oh yay, well, where are they? He asked, trying to call, in his opinion, his bluff. They have other duties. Plus, I don't see the reason for me to revile my hand to you like you did, he said with a small smile. The statement shocked Riser, only for his shock to turn to anger, but before he could speak again, a young girl from his peerage stepped forward. Oni-sama, what is going on? Didn't you say that we were coming here in order to convince Rias-san to marry you? Why are we even tacking to this peasant? Asked the girl. She had dark blue eyes and long blonde hair that was tied into twintails with large, drill-like curls, and blue ribbons keeping them in place. She was wearing a light purple dress with dark purple accents and a blue bow at the front. Riser explained to her what was going on, and she looked at Naruto differently now that she knew that he was an heir. Still, he badmouthed her Oni-sama's peerage, a peerage of the house of Phoenix, and he had to be put in his place. I am Raven Phoenix, fourth child of the Phoenix house and Oni-sama's bishop, she said as she looked at Naruto, and although she would not admit it, she found him very handsome. I do not know from which family you are from, but no one badmouths the Phoenix and gets away with it, she said with an act of superiority, which disappeared once Naruto looked at her straight into her eyes, both unnerving her and enchanting her with his icy blue eyes. I am sorry if what I said sounded like an insult to your house, but I was talking about Riser specifically. Now we have dragged this for far too long, and I am sure we all have other things to do, so why don't we speed things up? He asked and looked at Graphia. The maid nodded and stepped forward. Very well. Since both parties refused to back down, as I mentioned before, a rating game will decide the outcome. The rating game will take place in 10 days from now at midnight. Is that acceptable to both of you? Both Naruto and Riser nodded. What about the rules of the game? Asked Naruto, and Graphia looked at him. You will informed about the rules before the game starts. I will arrive at your residence 5 minutes before the game starts in order to take you to the battlefield, she answered, and Naruto nodded as he stood up. Very well then, I will see you all in 10 days. Graphia-san, Rias-san, Revel-san, he said as he made a small bow to each of the three women and disappeared in a flash of yellow light, stunning everyone in the room. Break. Naruto appeared into a room at his basement with a flash of yellow after he used the Hiraishin. This specific room was made for teleportation purposes, so all it had was the magic circle in the center of the room and a Hiraishin seal at the wall facing the door. Yo chief, how did the talks go? Said a voice, and Naruto looked towards the door. There, leaning at the wall next to the door, smoking a cigarette, was a tall man with brown eyes, short, black spiky hair, and beard. He was wearing the standard Konoha ninja uniform with the sleeves rolled up half the way, flak jacket, regular shinobi sandals and forehead protector. He also wore a sash that had the kanji for fire marked on it around his waist, a pair of black bangles and bandages wrapped around the arms of his sleeves. This was Asuma Sarutobi X Jonin of Konoha and Naruto's knight. Asuma was the first to join Naruto's peerage. After his confrontation and death in the hands of Hidan and Kakuzu, Naruto had managed to save his body, as he arrived right after Hidan finished his ritual. After obliterating the zombie duo, Naruto decided to turn Asuma into his first piece and thus gave him a second chance in life. The reincarnation of Asuma to a devil led to Naruto acquiring another piece. After they returned to the village and Naruto explained how it was possible for Asuma to be alive, Kurenai asked if she could be turned into a devil as well in order to be with the man she loved. Naruto accepted, and turned Kurenai into his bishop. Kurenai is not pregnant in this fic. Hey Asuma, it was interesting. I will explain the details when we are with the others. For now, know that in 10 days we will be participating in our first rating game. This surprised Asuma. He did not expect them to participate in a rating game until after Naruto reached the age that he was considered a foully mature devil, but nodded nonetheless. So anything interesting happened while I was gone? Naruto asked his knight as he approached him. Not really. The Rokudame Hokage has sent us a report saying that the elemental nations are in stable peace, even with you gone. Seems quite a few bonds of camaraderie were forged during the Fourth Shinobi War, so even without you, the man who single-handedly defeated Madara and Kagaya and brought the peace they now have there aren't any problems. Also the Biju say Hyasuma finished. Naruto smiled at the news. When he decided to leave the dimension of the elemental nations, some were afraid that without him there the peace that was created when he ended the war and released the Biju would crumble. Speaking of the Biju, Naruto really missed those 9 beasts, Kurama especially, since he had been with him all his life, and had learned a lot about them when he briefly had them all inside him. As a result of having all of the Biju inside him, even for a short time, he obtained 3 more Kekkei Genkai, Yoden lava release, Jiden magnet release, and Fuden boil release, giving him a total of 5 if you include the 2 he had obtained from his mother's side of the family. Even if his mother only awakened the Uzumaki chains, which were unlocked when the seal that had those 2 Kekkei Genkai and his devil powers locked was released on its own on his 14th birthday, after he had left with Jiraiya, well, he said 5, but it could be counted as 6, as the final form of one of 2 he inherited from his mother's blood had been always seen as a different Kekkei Genkai. You know, I am still amazed that Kakashi agreed to become the 6th Hokage, him being a lazy pervert and all, Naruto said with a small smile, and Asuma nodded in agreement, mimicking Naruto's smile. Anything else? He asked his knight, and Asuma nodded. Yes, Kushina-sama called to remind you to call her and tell her how the tax about the marriage contract went. A gentle smile appeared on Naruto's face when he heard his mother's name. A few minutes after Naruto and his peerage first appeared in the underworld. A few days ago, Kushina Uzumaki appeared from a bright light and bear-hugged Naruto while tears fell from her eyes. It turned out that Kushina's maternal grandmother is a goddess of great power. And as she came from the pantheon that had complete jurisdiction over the dimension of the elemental nations, she was able to take the souls of Kushina and Kushina's mother from the afterlife of the elemental nations and make them goddesses as well. Though Kushina was not allowed to go back to the elemental nations dimension, the revelation of who his great-grandmother was answered the question as to why he was able to obtain the full power of one of his Kekkei Genkai without having to pay the heavy price that usually was required, as well as the few change to his devil heritage. I see, I will call her later. Now where is everyone else? He asked as he slowly approached the door. Well, most of them, except for the 2 you told to wait for you inside the training room, are in the training zones training. The last 3 members of the peerage, replied Asuma, as he followed his king outside the room. Good, I want them to be ready for anything that may come our way, said Naruto, and they went through the door. Once Asuma closed the door behind them, they found themselves inside a hall stretching to their sides. At the end of the hall to their right was a flight of spiral stairs that went both up and down. Next to the stairs to the right was an elevator door. On the other end of the hall was a single wooden door, same as the door which they passed through and the door that they were facing. This was the first basement floor of Naruto's estate. What exactly are you expecting to happen that has you so worked up? Asked Asuma as they approached the door in front of them. Naruto stopped and turned to face Asuma. When we arrived to the underworld, I still had 3 pieces, a mutated rook, a knight and the queen, he started, and the knight nodded. For the next 3 days I gambled with 1 random teleportation jump each day. And for each one I met the perfect candidate for one of my remaining pieces. That is the exact same kind of luck I had in the elemental nations when it came to gambling. With the side effect of nearly all the missions I went on were of higher rank than what we thought they were, so if my luck in this world is the same, then I will most likely have the same luck on assignments and any situations we drag ourselves in. That is why I want all of the members of my peerage ready for anything, he explained to Asuma, who had a look that said that although he never thought about it, it made sense, and nodded in acceptance of the answer. Naruto then turned back at the door, opened it, and entered along with Asuma. The room that they entered was painted white and had 6 glass domes on top of 6 pedestals that rose up to their waist. One was in the center of the room, and inside the dome was a miniature grand palace made out of marble. The other 5 made a semicircle around the central one, and each of the 5 domes was connected to the central one with a tube. Each of those 5 domes had the model of a different environment. Looking at them from right to left, the environment representation was a rocky wasteland, a mountain with thunderstorms, a sea with a few small islands, a canyon that allowed for the existence of heavy winds, and finally an active volcano. These 6 domes were Naruto's greatest success in his effort to combine Fuinjutsu and Devil Runes. Each of these 6 domes was an autonomous mini-dimension that could be used for training and relaxation. He named them training zones. Apart from being autonomous mini-dimension, they had 2 more main factions. First is the ability to change the gravitational pull of each of the zones, thus allowing you to train yourself in harsher conditions. The second function is the time difference between the mini-dimensions and the real world. While in all the zones time flowed the same, it faster, much faster than the real world. 1 hour in the real world equaled to 24 hours inside the zones. For example, if you spanned a full month inside the zones, only 30 hours would pass in the real world. An idea taken from Negima Magister Negi Magi do not own. Due to these domes, his team had a bit less than 8 months to prepare for their raiding game with Riser. But first, in order to prepare appropriately, they needed information. After knowledge is the greatest tool that almost always promised victory in a battle, and he had 2 individuals that were perfect for the job. Looking to his left, he saw the 2 he was looking for waiting for him near the wall. The first person was a fairly tall man, standing at 6'3", well 6'5" if you count his Geta sandals. He had waist-length, spiky white hair that was tied back into a ponytail, with 2 shoulder-length bangs that framed both sides of his face. He also had red lines that ran down from his eyes and wore a horned forehead protector with the kanji for oil. He also had a noticeable wart on the left side of his nose. He was wearing a green short shirt kimono with matching pants, under which he wore mesh armor that showed out of the sleeves and legs of his outfit. His outfit was completed with hand guards, a simple black belt, a red haori with 2 simple yellow circles on each side, and a big scroll on his back. This man was Jiraiya the Toad Sage, and he was one of Naruto's pawns. When Jiraiya was dying after pain befitted him, the toads were able to reverse summon him to Mount Myoboku, where Naruto was at the time for sage training. Due to his respect for the man, he decided to ask him as he died if he wanted him to reincarnate him. Jiraiya nodded, and Naruto did so by using his mutated pawn, seeing that he was worth 6 pawns. After Jiraiya recovered, he informed Naruto and later Tsunade about his battle with pain as well as his abilities and the fact that he used 6 corpses as puppets, which led to the easier defeat of pain by Naruto without any casualties, as Naruto took him on alone as he had finished his senjutsu training earlier than expected. The individual next to him was a fairly tall man. He had dark, bushy, brown hair which was mostly hidden by a hood and a set of sunglasses that hid his eyes. He was wearing a gray shirt with matching pants under his light gray button-up jacket, which had the hood that hid his hair. This was Shino Aburame, and another of Naruto's pawns. Unlike Asuma and Jiraiya, Shino had asked Naruto to turn him into a devil when Naruto announced that he will be returning to his father's original world after staying another year in the elemental nations. Shino's desire to discover and bond with new species of bugs had led him to giving up his right as the heir of the Aburame clan to his younger sibling, in order for him to follow Naruto into that world. Naruto-sama, said Shino with his ever stoic and emotionless voice. Naruto had tried to have Shino lighten up a bit and not call him by titles when they were with only the peerage, but he hadn't succeeded yet. Hey there Gaki. How did it go? Did you get a hot girl to be your fiancé? Asked Jiraiya with a perverted smile on his face, which caused Naruto to sigh at the perverse nature of his godfather. Shut up, Ero Sennin. This isn't the time, Naruto said to Jiraiya as he composed himself. I have a job for you too, he said, and began to explain what happened at the meeting. So I am guessing you want us to gather information on Riser's peerage, said Jiraiya after Naruto finished talking, and Naruto nodded. Yes. But for Shino I have one more task, he began and looked at his hooded pawn. I want you to tag them, he finished, surprising Jiraiya, Asuma and Shino until it dawned to them why he wanted to do that. Jiraiya smirked at his godson plan. It was a simple one but ingenious all the same. Good thinking, Gaki. Depending on the type of raiding game we will participate in, it will be very useful, and since this is an unofficial game it will most likely have the most basic of rules, Jiraiya said as he nodded his head in approval. Prissily, now you better move, time's a-wasting. When you have gathered all the information you can and have tagged them, come to the training zones. We will discuss strategy then, Naruto said, and the 2 nodded and left the room to go the summoning circle in order to teleport to the underworld. Naruto then turned to Asuma. Go and help your fellow knight. I will come once if finished, calling Ka-san, he said, and Asuma nodded, approached the dome in the center and put his hand on it. A bright light surrounded Asuma before he disappeared, and Naruto left the room in order to call his mother. It was 11:30 on the day of the raiding game, and Naruto and his peerage were waiting inside a comfortable sitting room in his house. It had a rather large rectangular coffee table in the center. On the head of the table facing the doors to the room was Naruto sitting in a well-made armchair. He was wearing an almost exact copy of his father's attire when he was Hokage. The only difference was the haori, as it was red with black blames at the bottom and the kanji for cage inscribed in black on his back. On each side of the table was a large couch where 10 people in total were sitting, 5 on each one, and a final figure was standing right behind Naruto to his left. These 11 people wear Naruto's peerage, and at the moment they were all wearing dark green cloaks that covered their body completely and had hoods that covered their heads, leaving only the mouth and chin visible. They were all waiting for Grafia to appear in order to take them to the area where the game will take place. At exactly 11:55, the magic circle in the room, which was between the door and the coffee table, started glowing and the Gremory crest appeared in the center. The difference of this magic circle and the one in the basement was that the one in the basement was meant to be used by his family only, while this one could be used by guests, which is why it was located in a sitting room and the reason they were waiting there. When the light died down, Grafia appeared in the center of the magic circle and turned her gaze towards Naruto as everyone in the room looked towards her. "Naruto-sama, it is almost time, are you ready?" she asked after a small bow. "Yes, we are. Was my request approved?" he asked as he and the rest of his peerage stood up. "Yes. As you had requested, you will have a meeting with Rias Harem and Sears Lucifer-sama that will be broadcasted live before the rating game," she answered him. At the mention of Sears' title, the one that stood behind Naruto stiffened a bit and clenched her fists for a moment, before calming down. Grafia saw this and raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "Good," said Naruto as he approached the circle. He stopped halfway there and looked at his peerage. "Come on everyone, let's announce to the underworld the return of the House of Lucifer," he said to them and stepped into the circle. Everyone in the room nodded and moved into the magic circle, and Grafia activated it. Heaven Realm of a certain faction, Kushina Uzumaki, Konoha's red hot habanero, was sitting in a couch next to a woman with shoulder black hair, onyx eyes and cream-like skin, and was looking at the 5 floating screens in front of her with anticipation. "Calm down, Kushi-chan, it will start soon, so stop acting like you did when you were a child," said the woman next to her scoldingly, but had a smile of amusement on her face. "But Ka-san, this is Naru-chan's debut in both the supernatural world and the rating game matches." "I can't help but be exited," Kushina told her mother while glowing with pride. Then the two of them heard soft giggling from behind them. They both turned their heads and saw a woman with long silky black hair and onyx eyes. Her skin had the same cream-like appearance as Kushina's mother. She had a figure most women would kill for and was wearing a beautiful black kimono with random red designs all over it. On her hand was a large bowl of popcorn. "Ba-chan, you brought the popcorn. Good," said Kushina with a smile as she leapt from her seat, grabbed the bowl and sat back down with the bowl on her lap. Kushina's grandmother simply shook her head while a warm smile was on her face and sat down next to her granddaughter in order to watch her great-grandson's rating game. Grigori headquarters. A woman with black hair and voluptuous body, wearing a tight business outfit and with 2 sets of black wings on her back, knocked on the door in front of her. "Come in," said a voice from behind the door, and she opened it. The room she entered was filled with machines, parts, test tubes and everything else one might expect to find inside a lab of a mad scientist. In front of her with his back turned on her was a man who was in front of a table, tinkering with something. "Sir, it is about to begin," the woman said as after she bowed her head in respect. The man stopped what he was doing and turned around, revealing purple-colored eyes, black hair, golden bangs and black goatee. "Good, thanks beautiful," he said as he grinned at her and then started walking towards the door. The woman blushed at the compliment and straightened up. "It was my pleasure, Azazel-sama," she said as she followed him out of the room. When she exited, Azazel locked the room and headed to his office. On his way there he met a young man with dark silver hair and icy blue eyes. He was wearing a dark green V-neck shirt with a high-collared black leather jacket over it. For pants he was wearing burgundy jeans with a silver chain drooping down over them and black leather chaps with 3 bands encircling his right calf. Finally, on his feet he was wearing black shoes with black buckles. "Azazel, where are you heading?" asked the young man. "A valley. I am going to my office to watch the rating game that is the talk of the entire underworld. Would you like to join me?" he asked with a smirk. Valley simply closed his eyes and a small smile appeared on his face. "Sure, I don't have anything better to do," he said and followed Azazel to his office. Unknown location. In a dark room, sitting in a throne, looking towards the 5 monitors in front of him was a middle-aged man with long dark silver hair and a small silver beard. He was wearing silver-colored royal-looking robes with 6 metal wings on his shoulders, 3 on each one, on his hand a silver goblet filled with wine. Next to the man, standing on the right side of the throne, was another man with long light silver hair tied in a braided hairstyle and silver eyes. He was wearing a silver robe with detailed accessories. "So what do you think, Euclid? Will it be an interesting game or a boring one?" asked the man sitting on the throne, a sadistic smile on his face, while he was slowly stirring the wine in his goblet. I do not know Rizavam-sama, though the third son of the Phoenix is well known. His opponent is a complete mystery. The only thing we can do is wait and see how this plays out. The now named Euclid answered his master. The sadistic smile on Rizavam's face grew bigger as he moved the goblet towards his mouth. How right you were. Let's see if these youngsters have what it takes to entertain me, he said, drank some wine, swallowed it, and started laughing like a lunatic. Heaven realm of the biblical god. Inside the meeting room of the Seraphim, 2 individuals were sitting on 2 of the 4 throne-like chairs surrounding a round table. In front of them were the 2 other chairs, who were empty currently as their occupants didn't have any interest in the reason the other 2 were there. On their left was a small set of stairs leading to a majestic golden throne which, much to the sadness of the ones inside the room, it had been empty for centuries. On their right was a big golden door that was the entrance to the meeting room. The first individual in the room was a handsome-looking man with long blonde hair and green eyes. 12 golden wings were growing from his back, showing his position as the leader of the Seraph. He was wearing a ceremonial-like armor robe that had the gold and white as its primary colors. The other person inside the room was an extremely beautiful woman with curly blonde hair and a voluptuous figure. She was wearing a simple white tunic, and from her back were growing 6 sets of white wings, signifying her rank as a seraph. Michael Onisama, said the woman as she looked at the man next to her. The now named Michael looked towards his younger sister. Yes, Gabriel? He asked as she looked at the screens that were floating on top of the table. This is going to be a devil rating game, correct? She asked, and he nodded. How come we are able to witness it? Usually it is very hard for us to watch one live. Well, Gabriel, the game is between the third son of the devil Phoenix house and an unknown devil from an unknown house for the hand of Rias Gremory, Sears Lucifer's younger sister, and for some reason Lucifer decided to stream the match live, so it was easy for us to connect, he explained, and an innocent smile appeared on his sister's face. A duel for love. How romantic, she said with a voice that could have belonged to a little girl listening to a bedtime story. Michael merely nodded to his sister and turned his attention back to the screens. Elemental Nations, Konoha, Hokage office, Kakashi Hatake, the Rokudame Hokage, was sitting behind his desk. To his sides, sitting in the couches of the office, were what was left from the Konoha 12, Tsunade, Iruka, a few Jonin, the Konohamaru Corps, the clan heads, the Ichirakus, and a few other people. All of them had their attention turned to the 5 screens that were hanging in midair. Due to a request from Naruto, they were allowed to view the rating game, and they were currently waiting for the game to start. Come on. When is this thing going to start? Asked Kiba Inuzuka with a frustrated voice. He had messy brown hair, sharp black eyes with vertical slit-like pupils, pronounced canine teeth. He also had a goatee. On his cheeks he had the distinctive red fang of the Inuzuka clan. He was wearing the new standard flak jacket underneath an open fur coat, and black fingerless gloves. He was also wearing gray pants reaching his calves and sandals. The last movie appearance. Relax, pup. It will start soon, have some patience, Sume Inuzuka. The matriarch of the Inuzuka clan told her son. She had long, spiky, untamed brown hair, vertical slit-like pupils, elongated canine teeth and nails. Like her son, she had her clan fang markings on her cheeks as well as markings over her eyes and a dark shade of purple lipstick. She was wearing the standard outfit of a Konoha shinobi, consisting of the new standard issue flak jacket and a black suit underneath with the sleeves rolled up and bandages around her legs. Troublesome is what this is, said a certain Nara as he looked at the screens with his eyes half closed. Oh come on Shikamaru, don't be like that. Aren't you curious about this rating game? Said a blonde woman that wore a long purple skirt and top. This is going to be very youthful, said certain retired Jonin on a wheelchair. Huh? You say something, guy? Asked Kakashi without any interest. Curceu Kakashi, and your hip attitude, yelled Might Guy, casing all the people in the room to cover their ears. At that moment light appeared on the screens in front of them, gaining the attention of a certain shrunken fox. Stop talking. The show is about to start, said Kurama with his usual semi-sadistic smirk. His other 8 siblings nodded their heads in agreement and everyone turned their attention towards the screens. Underworld. Gremory Castle. We find Rias in the ballroom of her family's castle looking at the screens in front of her with a worried look. She was wearing an exquisite white wedding dress. Next to her were her peerage, all of them wearing formal clothes, as well as Sona and her queen, who were also wearing formal clothes. Near them were the heads of the Gremory, Citri and Phoenix houses, and further away, standing next to tables that were set up all over the ballroom, were the guests that had been invited to attend, for this would be either a wedding or an engagement party. Bucko, are you okay? Asked Issei while looking towards Rias. Rias looked at her pawn. I am fine, Issei. Do not worry, she said, though the look on her face told her peerage and Sona and her queen that she was worried. No one said anything as they did not know what to say to make her feel better. Underworld. Mao throne room, in a circle room, made completely by black marble, a red-headed man, with blue-green eyes, was waiting with Riser and his peerage. This man was Sears Lucifer, a Mao of the underworld and the older brother of Rias Harem. He was wearing his official Mao robes and was currently waiting with Riser the arrival of the Phoenix's opponent. Lucifer-sama, I do not understand why you would go to such lengths to make this game live. It will be a boring match whose conclusion is already decided, said Riser arrogantly while looking at the current leader of the underworld. Sears merely smiled as he looked at Riser. Now Riser-san, there is no need for you to be frustrated, just relax, he won't be long now, the previous Gremory said with a relaxed smile. Riser simply snorted and turned his attention back to his peerage. A few minutes later a red magic circle appeared and out of it came Graphia with Naruto and his peerage. Naruto approached the center of the room where Sears and Riser were. Hello Sears-san, I hope I am not late, he said and stopped in front of Sears. Not at all Naruto-san, you are just in time, said the Mao with a smile. Naruto smiled lightly and nodded his head. The smile then dropped as he turned and looked towards Riser, and saw the blonde Phoenix getting angry due to the fact that he was ignored up until now. Anyway, now that we are all here we can begin, said Sears, his pleasant smile still on his face. About time we started this farce. Let's see what you can do, you low-class filth, said Riser with a smug look on his face. Naruto's expression remained void of any emotion, but inwardly he was really looking forward to removing the smug look from the bastard's face. Sears looked at Riser with a small hint of annoyance, but he covered it well. Then pretending that he just remembered something he turned towards Naruto. Oh, that is right. Naruto-san, you did not fully introduce yourself to him on your previous meeting, he said. Naruto looked at Sears. He understood that the red-headed Mao was giving him the go-on to more or less shock the entirety of the underworld and anyone else that might be watching that did not know about his heritage. Ah yes, how rude of me, Naruto said and looked back at Riser. Allow me to properly introduce myself. My full name is Naruto Uzumaki Lucifer, he said, and at that moment 8 devil wings came out of his back. But they were not black like the normal wings of a devil, they were golden, son of Minato Lucifer, also known as the Black Hood, who was the first grandchild of the original Lucifer, and I am the true heir of the house of Lucifer, he finished and raised his left hand to show a ring that was on his middle finger. The ring was a signet ring made of pure gold. The inside of the signet area of the ring was a ruby that had carved on it the sigil of the house of Lucifer. Heaven realm of a certain faction. Kushina was smiling brightly as she watched her son shock the entire supernatural world. Her mother was shaking her head as if to show her displeasure that her grandson was causing trouble, but the small smile on her face told otherwise. At the same time, Kushina's grandmother was giggling at the actions of her great-grandson. My goodness, Naruto-chan certainly knows how to cause mass shock to the supernatural populace, his great-grandmother said and continued giggling. Her daughter smiled at her mother's words and looked at her grandson with a small nostalgic smile. He is almost exactly like his grandfather and mother. The Uzumaki is strong in this one, said Kushina's mother, causing her daughter to smile brightly. Of course it is. His pranks during his younger years should have showed you that he inherited the Uzumaki's ability to be unpredictable and creative, said Kushina, her smile never leaving her and her gaze stuck on the screens. The other 2 women nodded, smiling at the happiness the younger one of them was radiating. Unknown location. A clattering sound could be heard in the throne room that Rizavam was sitting as he had dropped the goblet from the shock of seeing that particular ring again. Even his right-hand man was shocked. Rizavam-sama teethats, Euclid said in shock. I know what it is, Euclid said Rizavam while he clenched his fists. They both knew the ramifications the fact that his now revealed grandson had the ring could bring, and how much it will hinder their plans. But where did he find it? The servant asked his master. The silver-haired man glared at his servant. How the hell should I know? He asked enraged, casing Euclid to back off. The son of the original Lucifer had been looking for that ring ever since his father died on the final battle, but could never find it. Gregory headquarters. Valley was shocked at the proclamation Naruto made, while Azazel was laughing his ass off. Getting over his shock, Valley looked at leader of the fallen angels with an annoyed look. You find this funny? He asked as Azazel stopped laughing but still had an amused smile on his face. Of course I do. His proclamation in the presence of that ring on his finger will cause some really interesting after effects, he told Valley while turning his attention back to the screens, his smile of amusement never leaving his face. Heaven realm of the biblical god. The 2 archangels that were watching the events unfolded were shocked into silence as they were looking at the golden wings the silver-haired Lucifer possessed. Michael Onisama, his wings have the same gold hue as yours, said a shocked Gabriel to her equally shocked brother. I know, And the fact that he is a descendant of Lucifer will cause a lot of issues, he said with a worried voice. Still, he was very curious as to why the young Mont's wings were golden. Underworld. Gremory Castle. Silence covered the entire ballroom of the Gremory Castle at the young Lucifer's reveal. The shock of the older generation was even greater when Naruto showed the ring. Is that what I think it is? One of the guests asked with shock evident on his voice, as he said that murmurs about the silver-haired heir started coming to life. A man that was next to him answered with an equal shocked expression. It is. I could never forget the sight of the original Lucifer's signet ring. But it was thought to be destroyed when the original Lucifer died. Where could he have found it? Another man asked as he entered their conversation. I do not know, but what I do know is that the appearance of an actual descendant of the first Lucifer that has in his possession that ring will cause a lot of noise, the first man said, and the others around him nodded. Rias and the younger generation of devils was downright shocked, though they did not understand the significance of the ring. The fact that Naruto was the heir of the Lucifer house left them speechless. Rias herself could not utter a single word, though her mind was racing at all the outcomes that could happen if Naruto won the rating game. If she ended marrying him, she would become Lady Lucifer. The title alone held a ridiculous amount of prestige. In fact, it was leagues above the title of Lady Gremory that her mother had. Don't get her wrong, she wanted to marry someone that she loved, but in the end she was a devil, so it was inevitable that she would unconsciously think of what she would gain from her marriage with Naruto. Well, this is a surprise, said Akano as she got over her shock. Ill say, said Kiba, also getting out of his shocked state, though he still had his eyes wide. Sugoi, this guy is bigger than I first thought, said Issei, still shocked of this revelation. Even he understood who the original Lucifer was and why this was a big deal. Still, started Sona and looked towards the murmuring crowd of adults. It appears that the fact that he has that ring on his finger is deemed a more important fact for the older generation, she finished. The rest of them looked towards the crowd of older devils and realized she was right. That's right. The younger generation was not told about the importance of that ring, said a voice on their side. They looked to their left and saw Lord Gremory with the rest of the lords and ladies of the Gremory, Citri and Phoenix houses. What do you mean, Sama? Asked Rias, and her father simply looked back towards the screen. Let's just say that the appearance of that ring in the finger of a descendant of the original Lucifer will cause some interesting effects. If they will be for good or ill remains to be seen, he said with a serious expression. This did not answer their question about the ring, but they decided to move their attention back to the screen. Their questions could be answered afterwards. Underworld. Mao throne room. Sirzex was surprised that Naruto had that ring, as he did not know he had it. As a result, he ignored the shocked Riser and his peerage and looked at Naruto with surprise and interest. My Naruto-san, where did you find that ring? He asked, curious if the silver head would answer, and because he was genuinely curious, Naruto simply smiled as he looked towards Sirzex. My father had it, and he made sure that even if he died that it would come to my possession on my 14th birthday, along with a letter informing me of everything I would need to know about it, he answered the redhead. This was a half-truth. It was true that Minato made sure that the ring would end up in his possession by storing it inside the seal that kept his powers sealed away. But it did not come with a letter. No, his father did something better. He sealed a good chunk of his power and consciousness inside the seal for his devil powers. As a result, after the seal broke on his 14th birthday, Minato had enough power to stay with his son for a month. On that month after his birthday, Naruto was not trained by Jiraiya but by Minato. During the day he trained him on his demonic and other powers, and during the night when his body rested he would train him inside his mindscape on politics, strategy, etiquette and everything else he would need as the heir and future lord of the House of Lucifer. I see, but I have to ask, where did Minato acquire the ring? Asked Sirzex while putting his hand under his chin while he looked at Naruto, Riser still forgotten. It was given to him by the original Lucifer right before the final battle of the Great War. The young Lucifer answered him, shocking both the red-headed Mao and every single person that was watching. Really? But why would he do that? The current Lucifer asked, getting more and more interested on their conversation. Naruto smiled his foxy smile that warned anyone that knew him that he was about to cause some mayhem. Oh, that is simple really. He gave him the ring because he chose him as the next lord of the House of Lucifer, he said, casing all that were watching another shock. Sirzex showed his shock at Naruto's statement by widening his eyes. But his son was the one in line to succeed him. Why would he give the ring to his grandson? The Mao asked the question that the entire audience, that knew of the existence of the son of Lucifer at the time, wanted to know. Because Lucifer saw that his son, my grandfather, Rizavam Levon Lucifer, was unfit to be the head of the house, let alone the leader of the entire underworld, he answered, knowing that his statement gave one hell of a devastating blow to that bastard's reputation. Searzex was surprised by Naruto's statement since he knew that one of the reasons why Rias Harem had so many followers during the Civil War was because they thought him the rightful ruler of the underworld. But if Naruto's statement, with the ring's presence as the proof, reached the surviving members of the old faction, a big percentage of them will seek the young Lucifer out in order to offer their loyalty. The red-headed Mao now realized why Naruto wanted to have this conversation live. The four Mao and the Devil Council knew that the remnants of the old Mao faction were still out there, waiting for the right moment to strike, but they did not know where. Naruto's declaration will not only give the young man followers and political pull, but it will also cripple Rias Harem. While this conversation was finishing, Riser finally got over the shock he got learning that he will be facing a descendant of the original Lucifer, and regained his cocky personality. So you are a descendant of the original Lucifer. Big deal. Even if you have more power than the average devil, the immortality of the Phoenix will show you how useless that power will be against me, he said with arrogance heavy on his voice. Naruto looked at Riser with a bored look. Oh right, you were still here. I completely forgot about you, he said with an uncaring tone in his voice, causing Riser to growl in displeasure. Alright, that is enough, you two, said Searzex with a smile on his face. You will face off against each other in a few minutes, so why don't we start the game? He asked them, and both of them nodded. With a snap of the Mao's fingers, two magic circles appeared on his sides, one on the left, the other on the right. Naruto and Riser chanced at one another of a moment before they and their peerages stepped on the circles and teleported to the rating game's battleground. Break. When that light died down, Naruto and his peerage found themselves inside the club room of the Occult Research Club, which was on the old school building of the Kuo Academy. It took them only a moment to realize that, due to the aura of the place, this was not the actual club room but a replica. As they checked the room, Graphia's voice was heard. It sounded like she was talking through speakers. Hello everyone, I am Graphia, a maid from the House of Grimoire, and today I will be the arbiter of the rating match between the House of Lucifer and the House of Phoenix. As she spoke, Naruto took the map that was on main desk, sat on in the middle of the couch that faced the windows of the room, and placed the map on the coffee table in front of him. In the name of my master, Searzex Lucifer, I will be keeping my eye on this match. By using both Naruto-sama and Riser-sama's opinion, we created this battlefield, which is a replica of the school, Kuo Academy, which Rias-sama attends to in the human world. In reality, Riser did not care about the battlefield, believing that it did not matter of what the battlefield would be, and allowed Naruto to decide. Naruto had chosen the school because it had a few good strategic points into the position of the buildings, and because if he chose an area that only he was familiar, it could be used as a bitch move from the Phoenix to excuse his loss. The location where both teams were transported will be their base. Naruto-sama's base will be the Occult Research Club's clubroom located in the old school building. Riser-sama's base will be the Student Council's room located in the new building. For the pawns, to use promotion, please head to the enemy's base to do it. While Graphia was explaining everything, Shino moved to one of the windows and placed his hands on it. To anyone that did not know him, it would seem that he was looking outside, but in reality Shino was releasing bugs out of his sleeves. The bugs scattered into the woods and got into position in order to fulfill their role in the plan that Naruto had. While Shino was doing this, another member of the group put a box on the coffee table right next to the map. He then opened it, revealing its contents. Inside the box was a full set of chess pieces, 32 pieces in total, half of them black and the other white. Each of the pieces that had more than one copy of it had numbers on it. The pawns had 1 through 8, the knights, rooks and bishops had 1 to 2 engraved on them. The hooded figure that opened the box then removed the entire set of the white pieces and placed them on the area of the map that represented the Student Council room. He then took almost all the black pieces, leaving 4 pawns behind, and placed them on the area of the map that represented the clubroom Occult Research Club. Once he was done, he stepped back and took his place around the 2 couches. A few seconds later, Shino was done releasing his dugs. He moved from the window and sat on the other couch of the room facing Naruto. Now it's the time for the commencement of the battle. Also, this match will continue until dawn in the human time. The game starts now, said Graphia, and a horn-like sound was heard. Does everyone have their communicator? Asked Naruto without taking his eyes from the pieces. His entire peerage nodded in confirmation. Then let's begin, the young Lucifer said, and moved his right hand towards the pieces. Insert music. Mov Love Alternative Ostvo. 109. Briefing. K1. B1. You will position yourselves on the forest around the old school building. Stop any enemies from getting close to the base, he said as he moved the knight and bishop that had the number 1 on them, placing them on the area of the map that showed the forest. The 2 he was talking to nodded their heads, affirmatively. P1. R2. You will move and occupy the gym, securing it and intercepting any of the enemy forces you encounter, instructed Naruto as he moved the pawn with the number 3 and the rook with the number 2 on the square that represented the gym. The two peerage members nodded to their king's instructions. R1, K2, B2, you will move towards the border of the forest in the forecourt and hide. If you spot any enemies, R1 and K2 will intercept them while B2 will stay back in case there is a need for backup. He moved the rook with the number 1 and the knight and bishop with the number 2 on them between the two areas of the map representing the forecourt and the forest. He then lifted the queen piece and put it between the old school building and the gym. Q. You will hide in this area and wait for you until counterpart appears so you can intercept her, he said in the hooded figure that was behind him. Towards his felt nodded. Now remember, strike fact and with accuracy. I want those peerage member defeated fast, clear? He asked as he looked at his peerage members and they all nodded. Seeing their nod, Naruto nodded as well. Good. The rest of us will stay here until the endgame. There is no reason for us to show all our cards after all, he said as he turned his attention towards the pieces. I will relay messages to you when appropriate. Now go, he then said, and the 8 members that were given a mission in this game vanished in a burst of speed. 15 minutes later, Shino moved 3 white pawns and 1 rook and placed them on the gym area. Seeing this, Naruto moved his hand to his ear. End music. Break. P1 and R2 were hiding on the railings of the gym when they heard Naruto's voice through the communicators. P1. R2, heads up, you have enemies. P4, P5, P8 and R1 heading your way, he said. The 2 members of Naruto's peerage nodded to one another and got ready. Not 5 minutes had passed and they saw the 4 members of Rias's peerage enter the gym. Looks like we are first to arrive here, said the taller woman of the 4. She was a well-endowed young woman of Chinese descent with shoulder-length black hair and blue-green eyes. Her hair had 2 Chinese-style buns on both sides of her head, while the front features bangs that form a slight V-shape across her forehead. She was wearing a navy blue kippah with gold accents, a white sash around her stomach, and black, low-heeled shoes. Come on, we must hurry and enter enemy territory in order to promote, said one of the other girls. She was a young girl with blue hair and light brown eyes. Her hair was styled with 4 short ponytails, with 2 of the 4 pointed up and the remaining 2 pointed down. The front of her hair featured spit bangs going across her forehead, with side bangs framing her face. Her outfit consisted of a white haori with a red obi, which she wore under a red happy coat. On her forearms and shins she had bandages and black guards over her hands. On her feet she was wearing a pair of zori. Oh, you worry too much, Mira, said one of the 2 remaining members of the 4. Yay, it's not like they can defeat us anyway, said the other one. The 2 were a couple of very young twins with turquoise hair, which they kept tied to one side of their head with yellow ribbons, and blue eyes. Both of them were wearing gym uniforms, which consisted of white t-shirts with blue accents, black leggings, and blue sneakers over knee-high socks. They were carrying gym bags, one was colored blue and the other red. They are right, Mira, you worry too much, said the first girl. I will have to disagree. She seems to worry just enough, they heard a voice say, and they looked forward. There on the stage of the gym were 2 clocked figures facing them. The Chinese girl smirked and put one of her hands on her hips. Look what we have here, 2 lost peerage members. Well, since we are here we might as well introduce ourselves. I am Shuailin, rook. I am Mira, pawn, said the blue-haired girl with a smirk. I am Nell, a pawn, said the twin with the red bag, while saluting. I am also a pawn, Il, said the other twin, while she also saluted. The 2 clocked figures looked at one another for a few seconds before nodding to one another, and with a single motion of their hands removed their cloaks, revealing their appearance. The first one was a young man with fair skin, long black hair and white irises with no visible pupils. The second one was a young woman with long, knee-length silver hair and deep red cat-like pupils, and she also has pronounced fangs coming out of her mouth. Both of them were wearing the standard Konoha Jonin attire, which consisted of a Konoha flak jacket, dark blue pants and a long-sleeve shirt. On top of this they were wearing ninja-issued chestplate armor, A.N. Check Jiraiya, Tsunade and Orochimaru during the 2 Shinobi World War. Since you introduced yourselves, it is only right that we introduce ourselves as well. I am Neji Hyuga, Naruto-sama's pawn, said Neji as he looked at the 4 in front of him with a stoic face. Neji was reincarnated by Naruto as his pawn after he shielded his friend during the 4th Shinobi War. Due to the fact that Neji died before he was reincarnated, he no longer had the cage bird seal on his forehead, and if Neji was honest with himself, he was glad that Naruto had given him a new chance in life. And I am Mocha Akashiya, Naruto-kun's rook, said the silver-haired beauty while showing them her fangs a bit. Mocha was the second person that Naruto added to his peerage that wasn't from the elemental nations. On his second random teleportation jump he stumbled upon Mocha while she was being attacked by vampires from an enemy clan of hers. Though Mocha was strong, they were too many and they had managed to corner her. Naruto, seeing this, was greatly angered. Due to his negative emotion sensing, which was a parting gift from Kurama, he was able to feel the negativity from the attacking vampires, and decided to help her. The power which he showed when he obliterated them left Mocha shocked and aroused, especially when came close to her. His scent made her dizzy with longing that she almost fainted. When he caught her, she followed her instincts, and bit him, thus becoming addicted to his blood. Mocha's father, Issa, though grateful to him for saving her, did not want his daughter to become Naruto's rook and challenged Naruto to a duel which he, Issa, lost spectacularly. After his loss, Issa did a 180 and allowed Mocha to become Naruto's rook, and when they left hinted that he wanted grandkids, which made both Naruto and Mocha blush and Issa laugh at their faces. "Do you really think that you could beat us? We are Rias-sama's pieces, we would never lose," said Schwalen with a smug look on her face. Neji ignored her, angering her in the process, and looked at Mocha. "Take care of the rook while I take on the pawns," he said to Mocha. "Hi, Senpai," she said, and jumped off the stage and started to move to the side of the gym, Riser's rook following her. Neji turned his attention to the 3 pawns in front of him and also jumped off the stage and landed in front of them, and crossed his arms in front of his chest. "What could you possibly do on your own?" started saying Eel as she and her sister unzipped their bags. "When you were up against the 3 of us," finished Nell as she and her sister revealed their chainsaws, turning them on. Mira did not say anything, but her confident smirk showed that she believed they could beat him. Neji kept his stoic expression and did not move or say anything. He simply stared at them. His gaze unnerved them, making them uncomfortable. "What are you staring at, you weirdo?" yelled Nell, since she could not take any more of his expression, and charged at him head first while swinging her chainsaw. The second before the chainsaw reached Neji, he sidestepped and hit Nell on her side with a palm thrust. The result was Nell crying out in pain as she skidded to the side. The other 2 were surprised by the speed and precision with which Neji avoided Nell's attack and got ready to attack him as well. Neji was back to his original position and looked back at them. "Nell, are you okay?" asked Eel, her sister. She nodded while holding her right ribs and glaring at Neji. "That bastard, he will pay for that," said Nell with venom in her voice. "Eel, Nell, we best attack together. Surround him," said Mira, getting her staff ready. The other 2 girls nodded to her words and all 3 of them surrounded Neji, creating an imaginary triangle. Mira in front of him, Nell to his left and Eel to his right. "You might be more skilled than we originally gave you credit for, but how are you going to withstand all 3 of us?" asked Mira, and the 3 pawns of Riser charged at Neji, weapons raised, and they attacked him, hopping to overpower him. Just as they were getting close to him, Neji decided that it was time for him to end this farce of a fight and started to spin rapidly. "Kaiten," he said, and used the Hyuga clan's ultimate defense. He did not have to do this in order to defeat the 3, but Naruto wanted to show this world that they are not to be messed with. The 3 guild were not able to stop their attacks, with the result of their weapons colliding with the dome and shattering into a million pieces, before they themselves crashed on it before they were repelled to the walls of the gym, their crash with the walls picking up dust hiding them from view. A minute later the dust cloud disperses, revealing the barely conscious pawns of Riser. "How?" asked Mira as she looked at Neji, struggling to stay conscious. Neji didn't say anything as she and the other 2 pawns were covered by a blue light. 3 of Riser-sama's pawns have retired, Graphia announced after they were teleported away. With Mocha and Schwalen, while the 3 paws surrounded Neji. Schwalen glanced to her left as she watched her 3 fellow peerage members surround their opponent, before turning her attention back at Mocha with a cocky smirk. "Well, your friend seemed to have gotten in a lucky strike, but it's over for him now." Mocha said nothing. Her eyes were closed and her hands crossed in front of her chest. The lack of response angered Riser's rook. "Hey, I am talking to you. Do not ignore me," she shouted at her. The only reaction she got was Mocha opening her eyes, giving Schwalen a bored look, showing her, Schwalen, her lack of interest. This angered the Chinese rook even more. "Why are you looking at me like that, and how come you aren't looking at the others? Aren't you worried about that guy?" she asked while pointing towards the other fight. "There is no need, those 3 can't possibly beat Neji-senpai," she said with serenity in her voice. "What are you talking about? It's 3 against 1, there is no way he could." Her sentence was cut short when flew between them and crashed on the wall to her right. Schwalen slowly looked towards the wall and waited for the dust to clear. A minute later the dust cloud dispersed, revealing Nell's battered body. The rook was shocked seeing one of her fellow peerage members in such a state. She slowly looked to her left and saw the enemy pawn standing there, his hands crossed in front of his chest, looking towards Mira. "How is this possible?" She asked herself as the three pawns started being teleported away and Greyfire's announcement was heard. "See. I told you," said Mocha with a smirk on her face. The smirk infuriated Shuilin to new levels. "Shut up." She shouted and launched herself at Mocha. When she was at close enough, she quickly did a right round house kick and tried to strike Mocha's face. Keyword tried. Shuilin had a shocked expression on her face seeing how effortlessly Mocha caught her leg in her grip. "You call that a kick?" asked Mocha with a bored tone on her voice. She then pulled Shuilin close to her. "This is a kick," she said and kicked Shuilin right on the stomach and released her leg. The force of the kick launched Shuilin to the wall, piercing it and making her sail through a few trees. She finally stopped when she crashed on the fifth tree on the straight line she was sailing on, barely able to keep herself conscious. How can you be so much stronger than me?" she managed to say as she looked towards Mocha, who was walking towards her, stopping a few feet away from her. "You really thought that you could defeat a Shinso vampire? Know your place," said Mocha as she watched Shuilin lose consciousness and teleport away. "One of Rias Harem's rooks has retired," came the announcement from Greyfia as Mocha returned to the gym. Underworld. Gremory Castle. The entire ballroom of the Gremory Castle was dead silent from the display of power and skill Naruto's pieces showed. They defeated 4 members of Riser's peerage in less than a minute," said Kiba as he tried to comprehend the technique that Neji used. Kaneko was shocked at the amount of power Mocha's kick had. "Did that guild say she was a vampire?" asked Issei in disbelief. The rest of the young devils of their little group were surprised, realizing that Issei was right. "She also looks like a pureblood vampire as well," said Sona as she examined Mocha's image. "Oh, not just any pureblood, Sona," said Lord Citri with an amazed expression on his face, one that was mirrored by the rest of the lords and ladies of the 3 houses, Gremory, Citri and Phoenix. "What do you mean Otou-sama?" she asked as she looked at her father. "She is a Shinso vampire. They are a breed of vampires that are considered a step above the rest of their species. They are stronger, faster, and most importantly they're immune to the rays of the sun," he answered his daughter, shocking the young devils. "Honestly, I am amazed that he has one on his peerage. That alone speaks volumes of his power and character. The Shinso are prideful. She would never allow herself to be his servant if he did not have great power and charisma," said Lord Gremory, the tone of his voice showing how impressed he was with Naruto. Just then they heard a large explosion from the screens. They turned their attention back at the game and saw that the gym was covered by smoke created by a large explosion. The screens then looked upward and showed Yubiluna hovering over the gym with her staff pointing towards the gym with a cocky smirk on her face. Thanks for watching.